Pay attention to these images. January 11th, 2026. Caspian Sea, 4 in the morning. 3 Ukrainian drones crossed the sky. They flew more than 950 kilometers, crossed Russian territory, passed through air defenses. And now, they are approaching the target. 3 Lukoil oil platforms, each pumping thousands of barrels a day, each generating millions of dollars that Putin uses to fund his war. The drones approach and then... boom! 3 platforms, 3 attacks at once. 950 kilometers away from the front line, Ukraine has just struck at the heart of Russia's energy empire on the other side of the country. But these attacks weren't just a show of force. They were the final blow to a company that was already dying. Because 18 days after this attack, Lukoil would do something unthinkable. Keep watching, because we're going to explain how, without firing a single conventional shot, the United States and Ukraine have just cut the artery that was keeping Putin's war alive. But wait, do you think this started with drones? Wrong. It started with a phone call 3 months earlier across the Atlantic in October of 2025. Donald Trump hangs up the phone, another failed negotiation with Putin, and he's had enough. Trump looks at his advisors and says one thing that would change everything. It's over. Let's destroy his source of money. It wasn't just tightening screws, it was a controlled demolition. The target, Putin's 2 cash cows, Lukoil and Rosneft. The sanctions that Trump was about to announce had one goal: to cut Russia's financial jugular, and it worked quickly. It only took a week for Lukoil to go into total panic mode. Imagine building a house for 30 years, brick by brick, and someone says, "You have 1 week to sell everything or I'll burn it down." That's exactly what Trump did. Lukoil publicly stated that it was willing to sell everything, and it had a lot to sell. Giant refineries in Bulgaria and Romania, gas stations spread across the United States, and the crown jewel, 75% of West Korna 2 in Iraq, one of the largest oil fields on the planet. Almost 500,000 barrels a day. Everything for sale, everything with a make an offer sign. But here's a detail everyone missed. Lukoil wasn't like Rosneft. Rosneft is state-owned. If it goes bankrupt, Putin saves it. Lukoil is private. It spent decades building its own empire. It was like putting a gun to the head of someone who doesn't have a bulletproof vest. And the United Kingdom saw what Trump did and thought, good idea, more sanctions. Lukoil was squeezed from both sides of the Atlantic. Remember the drones from earlier? December of 2025. Attack after attack. And another. Ukraine wasn't just fighting with soldiers, it was destroying what kept the Russian war machine running. It was attacking oil. January 11th, 3 attacks at once. The images you saw, 3 Lukoil platforms in flames. Lukoil was under a perfect siege by the West. Sanctions cut off sales. Drones blew up the platforms. But there was someone Putin really didn't expect to turn their back. Someone who had become Russia's best friend during the war. India, November 2025. Reliance, one of India's biggest companies, makes an announcement. It will stop buying Russian oil. The reason? Fear. Trump had made it clear whoever buys from Russia will face the consequences, and it worked better than any missile. India's purchases plummeted from almost 2 million barrels per day to 1.5 million. Do the math. That's 500,000 barrels that disappeared, $11 million lost per day, more than $4 billion per year that evaporated. Money Putin can't tax anymore, money that won't fund the war chest. And the price, this is where the story gets completely surreal, $22 a barrel. Russia was selling oil for $22. Do you know the last time oil was that expensive? 2020 during the pandemic when everything stopped. Putin is getting for Russian oil the same amount he was getting more than 20 years ago. It's as if time has gone backwards, as if 20 years of growth had been erased overnight. And do you know what happened to Rosneft, the state-owned giant? Profits fell by 70%. And that was before the October sanctions fully took effect. Russian oil production in 2025 hit its lowest level in 16 years. Russia hadn't produced so little since 2009. And there's a cruel irony. Here, the ruble was strong, 17% stronger than Putin expected. Normally, that would be good, right? Wrong. When you sell in dollars but pay in rubles, a strong ruble is a nightmare. Every dollar you earn is worth less when it turns into rubles. The Russian banks themselves did the math. Every small drop in the price of oil wiped out billions of dollars that Putin needed for the war. Lukoil was bleeding from all sides. Sanctions cutting sales, drones blowing up platforms, India disappearing, prices plummeting, and the ruble being too strong. It was a perfect siege. And then Lukoil's executives had an idea, a desperate idea. They went to the Kremlin, cap in hand, literally begging. Lukoil wanted the Russian government to change the tax rules because with prices in free fall, the company would have to pay $170 million to the government, money it didn't have. Imagine it. Top executives from a major oil company in the Kremlin pleading for help. The Russian government listened to everything, every argument, every number, every plea, and did nothing. Zero help, zero relief, zero change. The message was clear. You are on your own. Figure it out yourselves. And then, January 29th, 2026. 18 days after those 3 attacks in the Caspian Sea, 18 days of silence, the bomb went off. Lukoil made an announcement that took the whole world by surprise. A deal. $22 billion. Lukoil was selling everything, its entire international empire. Refineries, gas stations, oil fields, decades of building, billions in investments, everything. And the buyer. This is where the story gets even more impressive. An American investment firm, Carlyle Group, based in Washington, let that sink in for a second. Lukoil, which produces 2% of all the oil in the world, just moved its international empire from Moscow to Washington. From Putin to Trump, from the Kremlin to the White House, from enemy to ally. The deal includes almost everything that Lukoil built outside of Russia. The refineries in Bulgaria, the refineries in Romania, the gas stations in the United States, the oil fields in Iraq, all sold. For Putin, this is an economic disaster because every barrel that Lukoil sold generated taxes that financed tanks, missiles, soldiers, taxes that kept the war alive, and now that money goes to the United States. The deal still needs to be approved by the American government, but the intention is crystal clear. Lukoil is withdrawing from the global stage, and Putin is losing a massive source of revenue. In Iraq, the government looked at all this and decided, we don't want to do business with Russia anymore, and nationalized Lukoil's operations in West Korna too. Almost 500,000 barrels per day were seized. The partnership with Russia had become too toxic. And it's not just Lukoil that's suffering. The so-called Russian shadow fleet, somewhere between 900 and 1,400 tankers that Russia uses to circumvent sanctions, is facing the same nightmare. Indian buyers are afraid, refineries are refusing to do business, and the scheme, which worked for years, is falling apart. Meanwhile, prices kept dropping. $34 a barrel, that's the average price of Russian oil. Now it's gone up a bit from $22. It's gone up, but it's still a disaster. And the direction is just one, downwards. The pressure just keeps increasing. There's even a proposal in the United States to impose tariffs of 500%. 500% on any country that buys Russian oil. If that becomes law, it's over. The Russian oil market collapses completely. Nothing will be left. The United States and Ukraine managed to do something that seemed impossible. They cut off the source of money that was keeping Putin's war going. Ukrainian drones burned the physical platforms, and American sanctions burned the business model. And together, they forced one of the largest oil companies in the world to hand over its empire on a silver platter. In Russia, this is a devastating economic blow. For Lukoil, it's a total humiliation.
Lukoil and Rosneft's largest producer was sanctioned by the United States last October. It was part of a push by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to force Russia to agree to a deal to end the conflict in Ukraine.
And for Putin, it's another sign that this war is costing too much. Because this war isn't being won only on the battlefields with tanks and missiles. It's being won in the oil markets, in the price per barrel, in the offices in Washington, in the drone command centers in Ukraine. And Lukoil just proved that in the worst way. Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think economic sanctions like these are more effective than conventional war? Leave your answer in the comments. If you like this video, share it with someone who needs to understand what's really happening in this war, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. See you next time.